Hi, welcome to the Effortless English Show. I'm AJ Hoge. This is the show that teaches you to speak English confidently. Go to effortlessenglishclub.com and become a VIP member for only $1. So there I was at the edge of a mountain. A big cliff. I was at the top holding a rope. I was holding a rope and looking down, down, down. Because behind me was a big, long drop. So I was rappelling. In American English, we say rappelling. This is when you have a rope and then you go down the side of a mountain. So you're at the top and then you go down, down, down to the bottom. Some of the military guys do this, where they go very fast. This was my first time rappelling. I was looking down this huge cliff, and I could feel my whole body getting tight. My hands just were gripping, grabbing the rope so much that they were hurting. My breathing was tight. So I was kind of breathing quickly, and my throat was tight, so it was hard for me to talk at all. The instructor was next to me. He said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yes, I'm ready." My body was shaking a little bit. Even though I was tight, I was kind of shaking. And time seemed to move differently. Time seemed to go much more slowly. It was extremely terrifying because I was very afraid of heights. Now I still don't like heights. I still get quite nervous in high places, but at that time in the past I was terrified of heights. Terrified. And then I began to slowly go back, lean back, grabbing the rope, and then start walking down the side of the cliff, hand over hand with my feet against the cliff. And as I did, I remember, my breathing was still very fast, and I remember just staring straight ahead. All I could look at were my hands on the rope. It's like my vision, my sight, became very narrow, like I was looking down a tunnel. I couldn't really see anything to the sides or below or above, just only straight ahead. And slowly, little by little, I went down the mountain until I got to the bottom. And then, of course, this huge relief. I just fell on the ground, and oh my God, I was sweating. I was exhausted. The whole thing, it only took maybe 5 minutes, that my whole drop, my whole rappelling down the side of this mountain, but it felt like it was an hour or more. It felt like a long, long time. This is the power of fear. The power of fear. Of course, we know fear is an emotion. It's something that's in our minds. It brings up all these terrible images in our head. I was imagining falling to my death. But fear is also physical. It's physical. It's in our bodies also. And these reactions, these things I described, are common to all fearful situations, including giving a public speech. Or for some people, just speaking English, speaking a foreign language, can create some of this fear. Now, of course, there are different levels of this fear. On the mountain, that was extreme fear for me. But we can have a lesser amount of that also, where these same things happen, but just not as strongly. And when we face something that's scary, something that makes us nervous, it is indeed these same physical reactions that happen. These reactions I described are very common if your life is threatened. If someone's threatening you with a weapon, like a knife, they're going to attack you, you would feel many of these same sensations, these same things would happen in your body. That's what makes fear so difficult to overcome, because it's not just in your brain. If it was just in your mind, you could distract yourself and you would feel instantly better and do what you want to do. But it's also in your body, and when it gets into your body like that, it's very strong and it's hard to change. So what are these things that happen? There's some common things. Number one, I mentioned my vision. This is called tunnel vision in English, tunnel vision. And that's where, normally we can see quite a lot to each side. This is called peripheral vision. You're looking straight ahead, but you can also see what's happening off to the left and off to the right. You can see what's happening down underneath you and what above. You have this big wide angle of vision. That's normal. But when you are afraid, that gets more narrow. You can only see in front of you. And when you're really, really afraid, when you're terrified, when you're super nervous, then you get tunnel vision when you can only see directly ahead. And to the sides just becomes dark. So tunnel vision happens. It's a common fear reaction. We mentioned the breathing. Your breathing changes, typically gets faster. Faster and less deep. It becomes more shallow. Like you're like a little rabbit that's scared. That's the extreme example, right? But your breathing becomes faster and more shallow. Tension, tightness. Your muscles can tighten, right? You're not loose and relaxed. When you feel good, you're loose, you're relaxed. The muscles are softer. But when you are afraid or nervous, they become tighter. And again, when I was on that mountaintop, they were super tight. I mean, my hands especially were just incredibly tight, but my whole body, in fact, was tight. It was exhausting. After just 5 minutes, I was completely physically exhausted. Sweating can happen. Some people get sweating in their hands, but you can also just get sweating your whole body. You can sweat. These are the common things that happen. These are physical fear reactions. So our question becomes how to deal with this. How can we handle these reactions? And can we? Let's imagine you have a lot of nervousness about speaking English. And then you go to a party or you go to some meeting, and there are a lot of native speakers. You see a lot of Americans, for example. And you want to talk, you want to practice your English, but suddenly you get some of this fear reaction. Maybe not so strong like me on the mountain, but maybe a little bit. Maybe you feel a little tighter. Your breathing gets a little faster. You might feel your hands might sweat a little bit. Your tunnel vision, your vision might get a little more narrow. All of these can happen in a little bit, in little amounts also. And the problem is when these things happen, these physical reactions, then your brain also changes. The mental part of fear is that your deep thinking, your complicated thinking, your high intelligence shuts down. It starts to turn off. In that situation where I was hanging from the mountain, for example, I was feeling so much fear that my high intelligence, my complex brain, probably was off completely. Meaning, I could not think about complicated things. For example, if you gave me a difficult math problem at that time, maybe I couldn't do it. I might say, I don't know, because it's this part of the brain kind of turns off, and the primitive, the old part of the brain becomes the strongest. It takes control. That part of the brain that's in the back. It's the part of the brain that's just focused on emotion mostly, on fighting or running away. So difficult, complicated thoughts become more difficult when you are afraid, when you are nervous. This is why when you're feeling really relaxed, maybe your English feels better. Maybe you can actually speak much better. We all know the situation where someone is nervous and they can't speak English very well. But then they drink a beer or 2 beers, suddenly they become more relaxed, and they start speaking more and more and more. So what happened? Now they can speak. It's interesting, right? I saw this in Korea, my first job. I would sometimes go out at night with the Korean staff of our school. And when we first arrived at the pub. They were shy, they couldn't speak well. But as they had 1 or 2 drinks, suddenly their speaking became better and better. It was interesting. We used to joke about it. But now I understand why. It's because alcohol pushes down the fear. It pushes down that emotion. And when the fear goes down and then the body relaxes, alcohol also relaxes your body. When that happens, then the brain, the higher brain, the complex brain, can turn on again. And when the brain turns on again, then suddenly starts speaking. And the speaking becomes easier. Interesting. Very interesting. So I guess drinking would be one solution. Probably not a good solution, especially in a job. Maybe at a party or something. But if you're in a serious situation, you don't want to depend on drinking beer or alcohol. The good news is that you can train yourself to overcome fear. There are a few ways to do this. Let's talk about ways to overcome fear and build your confidence. And we'll specifically talk about fear and confidence with speaking. But these methods, these techniques work for anyone in any fearful situation. There are kind of 2 ways I think of to handle the fear. 2 general ways. One way is to channel. That's where you take that energy. There's a fearful energy. It's a physical energy, right? Your body's tightening. The beating of your heart gets faster. Your breathing gets faster. All of these things happen. Once they start happening, once they start getting stronger, it's very difficult to stop them. So instead of trying to stop them at that point, you can channel them. In other words, you use that energy, but you focus it in a positive direction. This is what I do, and especially in the past, what I used to do for public speaking. So my heart would start beating faster before a speech. My breathing would get faster, and I'd start feeling this nervous energy. I would shake. My hands would shake a little bit. At that time, it was very difficult to calm down. So instead, what I decided, I will use this energy. So I started to jump around and play exciting music. So that instead of feeling fear, I used that energy, I changed it into excitement. I changed it into enthusiasm. Right? So I took that energy and just made it more positive. So then, when I make a speech, or when I made a speech, I would be very energetic. Hi, I'm AJ! And I would walk around the stage and use a loud voice and move my arms and hands a lot. It worked. It worked very well. Gradually over time, as I did more and more and more and more speeches, I became less nervous before the speech. So that eventually I don't need to, for example, now I don't need to make myself quite so excited. I do it just to make myself feel good, to get in a excited mindset, but I'm not really afraid anymore of speaking publicly. I still might get a little nervous if it's a new group, if it's a strange situation, and then I might use this technique. But mostly now I use the technique just for fun, just so I'm a better speaker. But in the beginning, I used this technique to overcome fear. Actually, not to overcome it, but to use the fear and change it into something else. So that's technique number 1. Technique number 2 is to calm your body before the fear gets strong. So this is where you might use meditation techniques, for example, to keep your body calm before the fear becomes too strong. So let's use the public speaking example again. You're going to speak in maybe 30 minutes. You feel the fear starting. The nervousness is starting. And so at that moment, you sit down, you close your eyes, and you focus on taking long, deep breaths. Remember, short breathing, fast breathing, is common with fear. So you want to do the opposite. Take long, deep breaths into your stomach, very exaggerated long breaths. You might hold the breath for a second and then let it out very slowly. And you keep doing this super slowly, keeping your breathing slow and deep. This will help the fear stay low. It will stop the fear from becoming too big. You can also stretch your body. And remember, one of the things that happens, your muscles get tight. So stretch. As you're breathing very slowly, you can stretch your legs, stretch your back, stretch your arms. You could do a little yoga. So again, you're working on your body first. It's often best to focus on the body first. Now, there is also a mental part of fear, as we discussed. Your mind creates terrible images. You imagine yourself failing or getting hurt or something terrible happening. So while you're breathing and being calm, you want to make positive images in your mind, positive movies, so you actually see yourself succeeding. So as you're breathing very deeply, maybe stretching a little bit. At the same time, in your mind, you might close your eyes and see yourself succeeding. See a big picture in your mind of success. If it's public speaking, see yourself doing a great job. See the audience smiling and enjoying your talk and clapping for you. Yay! As you breathe slowly and deeply. Now, will this work completely the very first time? Probably not. This is something you have to practice again and again and again. You get it to become a habit. So even when you're practicing for a speech, before a speech, you could do this, several days before. Start to practice deep breathings. Practice seeing your success. And then practice getting yourself excited. You could use both techniques. Keep yourself calm, calm, calm. This is what I do now, by the way, before a big event, like 3,000 people. I stay calm most of the time. So for 1 hour, 30 minutes before the speech, before the event, before I go on stage, I stay very calm. I just relax. I keep myself very relaxed. And then about 10 minutes before, maybe even 5 minutes before, I start jumping and playing music and getting excited and smiling, and again thinking of great positive thoughts, imagining the audience smiling and laughing and clapping and having a good time. So that's how I do it. You can choose. Play with these things. But the point is, you must practice. I had to do this many, many times to overcome that fear. And that's the final technique, which is just repetition. Facing that fear again and again will make it slowly get less. I mean, the best and easiest way to overcome fear of public speaking, for example, is to simply do it a lot. And each time you do it, it becomes less scary. And when you use these techniques, it happens much faster. You can use this technique for any scary situation, anything that is fearful. So now it's time for our Twitter questions, which is my favorite part of the show. That's where you can ask me questions and I'll answer them here live. And my Twitter account is twitter.com/AJ Hoge. That's AJ Hoge. I like the Twitter questions because they're interactive. I like to hear from you. I like to hear your thoughts. So you can also put your comments or your questions, and let's focus mostly on this topic of fear and confidence today. All right, let's go to Twitter. Well, Charlie in France says sometimes alcohol is the answer. So, you know, that reminds me, when I was in my master's program, learning to be an English teacher, learning to be a better English teacher, I remember that I found a research study about this. Someone actually did a study about this where they had two groups and they studied their language ability, and then they gave one group some alcohol. They had them drink a beer or something, and then they tested their English speaking ability again. Then they gave the same group another beer, and then another beer, and they kept giving them more and more. The other group did not drink. And what they found was that there was an actual point where the language ability got better. It was about 2 drinks. After 2 drinks, the people became drunk and their English level got worse. But with 2 drinks, they actually spoke better English than the non-drinking group. And they spoke better English than before they started drinking. So I'm not telling you to drink necessarily, but you know, it is helpful to help people relax. It might be something you could do if you are a drinker. Just limit your drinking. Don't do too much, because when you become drunk, it actually becomes worse and you annoy people. So, but it's not so good to depend on alcohol, obviously, because you'll be in many situations in life where you need to speak English and you're not drinking. So don't depend on it. Il Maestro has a comment. He says, "Hey Jay, I already know these techniques, but the problem is I forget about them when stress starts to come. What do I have to do?" Great. And this is exactly right. When the stress starts coming, your brain doesn't think so well, right? This is what happens. This part of your brain, the higher part of your brain, begins to stop working, and that's why you forget about things and you cannot function normally. So, to fight against that, you have to practice it. This is why I say you must practice this before the stressful situation. If you have a speech on Friday next week and you know you're going to be nervous, you need to start practicing right now, every day. Practicing these techniques every single day, you know, for 1 week or more, so that when the stress comes, you've practiced it, it's a habit, and then you will remember to use these things. So you can't rely on doing this when the situation is very stressful. You can't think well when that happens. That's why you must train yourself. This is training. You've got to train yourself before the event happens. You know, our guest didn't make it today, and probably a Google Hangouts problem, but hopefully we'll get him on the show in the future. Richard Grannon was going to be on the show. He's a self-defense instructor. And so he teaches people how to deal with fear in a very, very scary situation. Someone's trying to hurt you. Possibly someone's trying to kill you. Of course, in that situation, you will fear that person tremendously. You will feel intense emotion, right? And if you don't train before that, if you don't practice how to deal with that, probably what happens is when someone attacks you, you're going to just freeze, you'll do nothing. Or you'll just, you'll do this, you know, you'll fall down and they'll hurt you or kill you. So training is necessary. And for a very extreme situation like someone trying to hurt you or kill you, you must train to deal with that super strong fear. So that's why, like when I talk about these techniques, it's not just something you use before you give a speech or before you want to talk. You must practice it many days before so it becomes a habit. Then you'll remember to do it when the stress comes. Julia, our superstar member in Italy, says, "I have a presentation on Saturday and your show comes at the perfect time. I will apply all of your suggestions except for the drinking. Okay, good. Be sure also, Julia, is again, practice it as much as you can. Another thing, practice it on the day of your speech. If you have a speech at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, then when you wake up in the morning, practice these techniques several times. Practice them when you first wake up. Practice them at 11. Practice them at 12. Practice them at 1 o'clock. And then do them just before the speech. So the day of the event, whatever it is, practice, practice, practice. Very important. That's how you train your mind to do this under stress. Charlie has another good point, Charlie from France. It's also a good idea to use anchors. And I've discussed this idea of anchors. It's an NLP term. NLP is a kind of psychological training. And an anchor is basically, it's something you do again and again, and you connect it to a feeling. For example, you make yourself really excited, yeah, and you're feeling fantastic. And then, when you feel super great, you do some kind of special movement. I do this, like I use my fist. It's kind of like a Tiger Woods movement, like this. Every time I feel strong and great, I do that movement. And by doing this again and again, what I did is I connected these two things in my brain, in my mind. This special movement, this special gesture, and the feeling of being excited and happy. After doing this many, many times, now what happens, if I do that special movement like this, I will start to feel happier and excited, and more excited. So that you can actually, first you get excited and you do the movement, but once you do it many times, then you can do the movement and it will make you feel excited. That's an anchor. Very cool. That's another thing you can do when you're practicing the technique. Do a different movement for feeling calm and for feeling excited. Don't use the same one because you'll confuse your brain. So you do the calm exercises, relaxing, deep breathing. You might do one special movement with your hands or something. Maybe like put them together like you're meditating. And then when you get yourself to feel very excited and energetic, you do another kind of movement. So then whenever you want to feel calm, you do the meditation movement with your hands. And when you want to feel excited, you do your excited movement. It's very effective. Very good. Okay, our final Twitter question before we finish. Actually, two. One, Max Galtieri asked, what about Richard Grannon? So he was not able to join my Google Hangout. We're using a program called Google Hangouts for the show, and he just could not join. I'm not sure what happened, so I'll email him and we'll figure out. I don't know, he may have gotten the time wrong because he's in London, or he may have had a problem connecting with Google Hangouts. So not sure what happened, but we'll try to get him back on the show. Okay, our last question then, or comment from Maya Glasher says, if I imagine the audience are happy about my speech and then I see the opposite, will it disappoint me? How to deal with that? Excellent question. And that's really a bigger question, which is more about public speaking technique. I would say don't worry about it too much right now. You need to deal with that. A good public speaker, when they see the audience is not reacting well, they have to adjust. They have to make a change. And this has happened to me. It's happened to me several times. Now here's the good news about this. Most of the fear is at the beginning. I find if you can deal with the fear when you start, you know, just before you begin the speech and then when you walk out in the first minute, if you're feeling calm during that time, you're usually going to be okay for the rest of the time. You might feel a little bit of fear if you look and the audience is looking unhappy or something. But if you use these techniques before, if you start with strong confidence, you'll be okay. Why? Because your higher brain will still be working. So then you can solve problems. You look at the audience, you realize they look tired, for example. Your higher brain's still working because you're not terrified. So you can think, oh, they seem tired. I need to be more energetic so that they wake up. Or maybe I'll ask them to stand up and stretch a little bit. Or they look bored, so I need to tell an exciting story. You'll be able to solve the problems because your brain will still be working, your higher brain. The problem is when you start the speech feeling terrified, your higher brain's not working very well. So then if a problem happens, like the audience doesn't look like they're enjoying it, or they look bored or something, you can't solve the problems because you're so fearful and you're having these physical reactions and your higher brain's not working well, then you can't think well, and it's hard to solve problems quickly in that kind of situation. So that's why it's so important to start in a strong and confident way that will keep your higher brain working, and then you will be able to solve these challenges that come more easily. All right, well, thank you for your Twitter questions. As always, I enjoy talking to you. It's my favorite part of interacting on the show, where I can get your comments and questions. Excellent comments and questions, as always. Now, let me end by discussing once again, as usual, our code and our mission. The code and mission are so important because they are what make our international community special. You know, the Effortless English community is very special. It's such a positive, strong, supportive community around the world. You know, people from all religions and no religions, men and women, all different countries around the world, and yet we're all very positive. We all have a great positive connection. We support each other. It's because of our code and our mission. Now, our code is just simply how we treat each other. It's very simple. It's only 3 parts. Number 1, we do the best we can. We don't try to be perfect. We don't worry about mistakes. We just learn from them. We do the best we can. Number 2, we do the right thing. We don't insult each other. We don't steal from each other. We don't harm each other, etc. We do the right thing. And number 3, maybe most importantly, we show each other we care. If another person in our community has a success, we congratulate them. If they're having trouble, then we support them. We encourage them. We do this on Twitter. We do this on our VIP site. We do this face-to-face. Any chance we can, we show each other we care. And our mission is our deeper purpose. Yes, our main purpose is to speak English confidently, but even more deeply, we have a powerful purpose: to explore new opportunities for growth. We're always trying to grow as human beings. To bring confidence, vitality, and happiness to people all over the world. We contribute to people around the world. We help people become more strong, more confident, more happy. And to boldly go where we have never gone before, meaning we will explore new ideas, new places. We're adventurers. All right, that's our show for today. Hope you enjoyed it. As always, go to effortlessenglishclub.com and join the VIP program. Try it for just $1. effortlessenglishclub.com. I'll see you next time. Have a great day. Bye for now.